people have to be able to tell their stories.
Yeah.
And so, for example, if you were to open up, so I think this would be amazing, some type of group where Black girls could just be, where they would be able, like the questions that you're asking, like you could be able as a leader to go to them and ask them this.
Yeah.
You could literally just be like, hey, so this happened last week. How do y'all feel about it? Like, let them tell you, let them create that culture. Like, of course, I'm going to have my sayings from the girls that I've worked with, but like you being able to like say, hey, this is your space. Do what you will with it. Obviously, they know within school, but like, do what you will with that.
Yeah.
Have a trusted, counselor or teacher with them because things are going to be brought up. Always.
What's up, everybody? This is Matthew Mason, proud host of the Hot Conversation with School Leader podcast. Just to remind you, HOT stands for honest, open, and transparent. We have had some really good guests coming on so far. We've got a lot more coming. I'll be honest, and many of the guests, hopefully you don't feel offended by this, but this individual who we have on today, I hope I'm not hyping up too much, but this individual, I've known for a while, definitely through my wife. And then when we went to Lynchburg and then worked with her a little bit. But I will tell you, I recently, I think it was like maybe a year, maybe a little bit less, heard her speak. And it really took me in a lot of different directions because her, I don't want to say this vision, but her love, her passion for Black girls, for Black women. She loves everybody, but that specifically for Black girls, Black women touched me because I'm married. I have a Black wife. I have two beautiful Black girls. My mother is a Black female. My mother-in-law is a Black female. The first lady in my church is a Black female. So there's a lot of things that didn't hit me, as a Black man until I got married and until I have my daughters. And as I'm watching them grow up, there's just a lot of things that I see that just don't make sense sometimes. And sometimes I feel like there's things that maybe I get away with that they don't get away with. And it just made me ask some questions. So I heard this young lady speak, and it felt like at least there was a path to some enlightenment, right? Of just like, okay, these are some books, these are some things that I can grow in just to help me be a better father, be a better husband, be a better man. And so I think this lady is an awesome thought leader. I think this lady is an individual who has a great family of her own. She's married and she has two beautiful daughters. And so this is the amazing Olivia Raj. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. You hyped me up. Thank you. You made me feel
That's the
special.
goal. I watch Shannon Sharp do it all the time, and I'm like, I'm gonna get better at this.
Oh my
I'm gonna
goodness.
get much
I
better.
feel so special.
Good. So for the audience, can you? A lot of times I say, take us through your leadership journey, and so for you it's the same. Because for everybody, Olivia has not been necessarily a school leader from the standpoint of an administrator. At the same time, though, I definitely believe she is a school leader because of what she brings to the building and to the people that she's around. So can you give us a little bit of your background and kind of how you've gotten to where you are?
Yeah. So y'all excuse me, my little throat is a little scratchy. I'm getting over a little sickness, but I will project. But yeah, so my background, I have always had a background with, I like to say, children and teenagers. It started when I worked at 4-H camp. I was a teen leader there. I was a camper there. And then I started working there. So that kind of started my mentorship. From there, I was highly involved in my high school, which is local here. And that really propelled me into mentorship. So I had a mentor that told me all about that. I went through the Iron Lives program. So I got to start a part of that. And so it wasn't that I was just here to be a student. I actually started a group for young women in that. So again, that really paved the way for mentorship. I've always had just a heart for teens. And now I guess kind of how I got to know you, how I got to know your wife, how I got to know many others was through a middle school, and I was doing the testing and everything there. And so I got to see that. Not that I like testing, but I like to see myself as, like you said, I'm not an administrator, but I was there for the students to serve as an advocate for them. So I wasn't a counselor, but on the side, I felt like I was one. They would come to my office and talk to me. And then from there, I just became just like, I kind of dubbed myself, you know what? I'm a community leader for these teenagers. And I used to say, oh, I'm the voice for them. But then I started getting around other people and I started sitting at the tables with teenagers. And I was like, well, I can't speak for them. I just need to pass the mic to them so that they can talk. So I have a lot of backgrounds when it comes to teenagers. I'm a stay-at-home mom now with my 2 girls. And I just continue to really dive into my passion, and that is Black girls. I advocate all things Black girls, and that kind of leads into Black women because they were children at one point, and I see the inner child in Black women, and so I'm able to speak into them as a Black woman. So yeah, Black girlhood is my thing.
Yeah, so diving deeper into that, what has brought out that passion for Black women, right? Like, so for example, when I was, a teacher, a social studies teacher, I ran a boys group. It was called Boys to Men. And so I had a great time with them, but it was like a huge thing for me because it was like, man, I really want these young men to be successful because there's a whole lot of things already stacked against them. And so I need you all to not necessarily figure things out early because that's not fair to children, right?
Yeah.
But want them to be at a place where they could just see their potential, how great they could be, and make better decisions earlier so it would set them up. So what like really drew out that passion for Black girls and Black women?
Yeah, well, I've had a journey, which is a whole nother story for a whole nother day, but within myself as a Black woman. I think as a Black girl, I've always liked to be Black, so I've never had the like, oh, I wanted to be another, but I've had like insecurities or not knowing how to maneuver in different places. And so I think it was, I would say when I'm from Nelson County, but when I really made residence here after I got married in 2018, I started meeting powerful Black women. That's what it was.
Right.
So Black women had a big impact on me. And so I was being exposed to things that I just wasn't exposed to before. I had a strong mother, but I also met other women that were reading books. I think education is so important. And so they started referring books to me. I would go to groups that I normally wouldn't go to. And when I say that, like, I never always felt accepted in the Black community, which was kind of a lie within my own head. Some of it's true, but a lot of it was just, I never really had groups to go to. And so from there, I think kind of like what you're speaking to, you want to give back to the youth in a certain way. You feel like it's not like you're polishing them or you're just trying to let them know how the world is. And so speaking from your own experiences and things like that. And I think you can be really true to yourself when you do that. So I kind of a part of myself. When I worked at that middle school, I went into that school and I was like, I want to be able to serve at least 3 girls. Like, that's my heart mission, to serve 3 girls this year. And so 3 girls were brought into my path. And from there, I was like, obviously, there's certain things I can do within the school limit, but what can I do more? And so I had met their mothers and made sure like that they knew me and we had that relationship. And so I really feel like that was the foundation that built it. And so they would come over to my house. We would have pizza. We would do Bible studies together. But most importantly for the girls that I had, they just wanted to talk about their relationships and the drama and just having somebody that was an adult, but also kind of met them where they were. So I say from there, those girls actually, I saw myself in them and I was like, man, I wish I had somebody. And I did have women that spoke into my life and did that. But I was like, cool, all the more, like, I want to also do that for young women. So I think that's what would help me. Those 3 girls that helped me do that. And then my business, which is for them, and made earrings and did all that kind of stuff along the way. And obviously I work for many different, organizations, but it always filled me when I knew that I was going to be serving teens because I was like, ooh, I get to look out for the Black girls as they get to come through. So that's kind of what propelled me to do that.
So what do you feel like are, or maybe for you, what are concerns that you have? So as a school leader, for Black girls in schools, like what do you think that they deal with or concerns? And then I was going to ask another question later on about how as a school leader can I serve our Black girls and support them?
Yeah, for sure. So that is, whenever I'm asked the question, to me, it's very loaded because I'm like, this is what we can do. But I try to simplify it for myself because I like to be practical, because I've learned that being with people sometimes, like, I'm like, this is the bigger picture, and Black girls are in danger and da da da. And people are like, whoa, hold up, hold up. And so I'm like, oh, let me just show you some practical things. And so I would say there's so many things that staff and leaders and different educators are going through in school. I know there's so many things that they're going to have to be trained on and that they have to do. But I look at specifically in my area, when it comes to our Black girls, I think it is evident even here in Lynchburg, when I go serve at the group home, there's all types of girls there, okay? It's not just, one type of girl, but I can't help but notice there's a lot of Black girls there, okay? I cannot help but to see my same girls going and going. Or when if I'm called in to mentor, obviously most of the time I'm mentoring Black girls for that very reason, because I want to speak into their lives. But it's always a need for Black women to speak into their lives and whatnot. So I would say one of the things is how people perceive them. Everything I think has to do with just kind of culture. Like, culture changes so much. And so I've been impacted by my cultures. You've been impacted by your cultures. I mean, however you identify yourself, I can think, like, obviously identify myself as a Black woman, but I also identify myself as somebody that has a strong faith. And so I'm like, I find myself having a lot of traditions from the church. I also find myself, being involved in political things because I'm all about like voting and getting out and learning those different things. So whatever we identify with, and when it comes to Black girls, from what I have heard them say, because I think I have my own ways of like, this is what they need, but I'm like, let me just ask them. And so one of the things I think they struggle with is people seeing them as older than what they are children. I think we can be taken back by, maybe we're like, oh my gosh, did they just say this? Sometimes I honestly think it's just you're not used to the cultural, like, you're just not used to how they're raised. You're not used to, you don't surround yourselves with people that are in their communities. And I'm just speaking to, I know a lot of times, like, people are like, is this just for the white person? No, 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 no. This is for everyone, because I have family members that have treated other, younger Black girls like they're adults. And so we see that today. There's a concept called adultification bias. Okay. So adultification bias is simply saying, it's a stereotype that is basically saying young girls, we see them as adults. We think of them maybe as violent. We think of them as more, we see them as less innocent. There's studies that have been done. I can share that information with you later, but that has been done by Georgetown University, and it showed how they compared in schools how Black girls are treated in regards with their peers that are white, and it showed that Black girls have a higher suspension rates, and we're like, why? And so they dig deeper into figuring it out, whether it's a communication issue, whether it's something like that. So I heavily think adultification bias has a lot to do. So us checking our stereotypes, us not seeing them as, us needing to see them as kids and understanding that they have stories. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, no, 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 we know that they have stories. But I even have to check myself as a mother, because sometimes I'm like, my 3-year-old is manipulating me. But that's not true. She's 3 years old. She's not manipulating me. She's trying to figure out the world. And I have to work on myself and how I get offended by these things. So I would say adultification bias is one of them. I would say there is support. Again, I'm not speaking on any school or anything like that. But when I sit in these rooms with these girls, a lot of the times they're always like, the school is against them. Like, they're always like, And I try to help them understand too, because I'm like, an administrator has so many things that they have to go through. Like, you got to do that. But a lot of times I hear they simply just don't feel understood, or they did something that was so small and compared to somebody else. And so I literally love to be, I do advocate on their side. So I'm like, okay, well, let me talk to the principal, or let me talk to the teacher and kind of navigate that. But what I wish is that those girls' stories and how what comes from their mouth would be way more accepted than what's coming through my mouth. In so many ways. So I would say that's a big one, from their mouths, from studies, and just from what I've seen.
Well, and I think it's so hard because now, like you said, coming from it's funny. So I grew my hair, obviously you can see I've
I
done
love
that.
it.
And I will tell you, when in Virginia especially, but many other school districts in Virginia, like, you can't wear your hat, can't wear your hoods, right? We as kids, can't wear your hat. I will tell you now, as a leader, I could care less about hats and hoods. You wear your hat and hood all you want to. You come to school, you're getting done what you're supposed to get done. I don't really care.
Right.
But it wasn't until, like, I grew my hair out that I kind of understood when a young lady would come into the school. She'd have a hood over her head, and I'd be like, "Look, sweetheart, you got to take the hood off." And she'd be like, "Mr. Mason, like, I wasn't able to do my hair. I wasn't able to do yada yada." And I'd be like, and now, honestly, I think it's so cruel now, but I used to do it. Like, it was like, "Well, sweetheart, I'm sorry." Like, even the best I could do is like, "Well, let's see if you can go back to maybe some of my school counselors. Maybe we could do something, but you got to take the hood off." And now I felt that way until I grew my hair. And so now I can understand when it's like, when I'm walking somewhere, if my hair ain't the way I want it to be, I don't want anybody, you know what I'm saying, to necessarily see my hair. And I know maybe I don't know if that's like superficial type situation, but sometimes from an administrative perspective, it seems like it can be very hard, depending on what you are, to work with a student who's different from you.
Yes.
And to take the time, because it's going to take time. Like, in order for me to sit down and work, I got a young lady who's literally in my head right now as I'm saying it, to sit down and listen to all the things, to not prejudge, to say, okay, well, this is how she's feeling, to not just immediately be like, well, look, sweetheart, I understand what you're saying, but this is a referral. I just got to deal with it and move on. Like, it takes so much time. What are words that you can give to a school administrator to say, hey, I know it takes time, but what's the value of that time that you're taking with that student?
I would say to that administrator, first and foremost, like, I'm going to use you as an example. Thank you for first of all, admitting that you were wrong in some things. Of course, this is so complex. Like, that conversation is so complex. But the fact that you were able to say, you know what? Maybe I didn't handle that right. Maybe it wasn't cruel. Not even sugarcoating it. Like, saying it what it is. And we are aware that you all do not have enough time in a day in everything that you do. But I do believe that a good administrator will make time to understand that this isn't a little issue. Like, what you just brought up is another thing that Black girls face, policing their bodies, or looking at what they wear all the time. And this wouldn't be a big deal if this hadn't happened so many times.
Yeah.
There's not a fair thing. There's been, I mean, our girls will tell you, again, while there are some other students or white girls that do get in trouble for their outfits, it is not the same percentage. Same with me. I had long legs. That was my issue. I would have the same shorts on as the same girl next to me, but I always got in trouble, and I started feeling really bad. So I would tell you, like you said, to really think about the concept of what a child is.
Yeah.
Why does it bother you that they are wearing such and such? Like, is it that bad? Is it a big deal? Like, what is the environment of what's going on in your school? A lot of times we do see, like, what's going on nationally, but looking at the culture as well of your school and understanding that too. Really pinpointing that student and really hearing their story. Every single one of them are different. None of them are the same. Even if we're like their best friends still have so many different stories. Like, you have their own, thing. So valuing their voices and what they have to say. I would also say, to help out administrators, you have a team. You cannot do it all.
Yeah.
hire people that you know that have a heart for Black girls. I mean, I know the interview process, you can't do discrimination, you can, but look for those qualities in people. Like, listen for that when you're hearing that interview. If someone is blatantly saying, whether they're saying Black girls or not, maybe they're just saying, oh my gosh, I have a heart to listen to students and to advocate for them, to be the middle person. That's somebody that you might want on your team, because that might not be a strength that you have. And that's okay, because you may have so many other things going on. It might be that other person that you have that's supporting you. And I know that administrators and teachers in school settings have that, but making that really a big part of the culture. Like, let me have not just the educators that are here just to teach and to get their paychecks, but people that are actually here for the students. And I'll say that now, because there's not always that many people that are there for the students, but they're there for the paycheck. So, or they've been there so long and they don't know what's going on with the change. And so, yeah.
So going with that, I got my little man barking in the background. He listening to something. It's taking everything in me not to go yoke him up. It's taking everything. It's like the kids. It's like,
oh, I know. I saw you. I was like,
it's like, so what I wanted to ask though was, do you think it is valuable to have a Black female on your administrative team? So some people may say no. I don't necessarily feel like you have to have that. But do you think it is valuable for that?
I absolutely do. But I'm also say this: just because it's a Black woman, don't mean you're for the cause.
Gotcha. Right.
So I'm not. Well, what was a quote that I live by? It's not about representation. It's not so much about representation as it is the substance that comes from it.
Right.
So while the representation may be there, what is the substance of it? So is it just a face and we're just using it as a token? Like, not like, oh, we just want this person here just because that may be a calming presence. And that is true.
Right.
But, or do we want someone that has it, we might have it all together, but also with the substance to it? So I would say yes and no. That's just an opinion. I also do not think that it just has to be a Black woman.
Yeah.
I think it could be anybody that gets it. But I've been around my students and they'll just tell me like, you're different. You're different, Ms. Raj. You're different. And I know what they're trying to say. So, yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that too. I'm going to pause it real quick. So the good thing is it will keep everything work. So, all right. So listening to that, and then I kind of felt that way too about it just depends. I have been in situations though where like, and then this is honest, open, and transparent. So I'm just going to say that been in situations where there aren't any Black leaders on an administrative team and even a lot in the division. So I felt like it's important to have somebody of color on the team. And I've always been like, just someone of color, like whether that's Latino, whether that is Black, whether that is Asian, somebody needs to be in, because I can't speak to, I can hear and listen, but no matter how much I read, how much I listen, how much whatever, I'm not going to be able to see things necessarily from that particular culture or ethnicity, just because I just have never been a part of that. So what is the way that somebody, well, I'll ask this. This is a cool question. And you brought this up, trying to get somebody on your team. What are some good questions that you think should be asked in an interview that would be like, hey, that can kind of get to the answer without coming off like you are on purpose trying to get somebody who,
No. I think it would be good to use actual, like, maybe situations that you've had at school.
Makes sense.
And I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head. And so if you've had a situation, and I would use like a hard situation, like you can use various ones, but if you've noticed, like maybe you've had a Black student that has had a run-in with maybe another one of their, teachers, I would use that as an example. Like, you ain't got to use names, or maybe you can, I don't know how, but using that and kind of like fishing in that way. Fishing isn't even, but using those, because those are actual things. I know whenever I get on an interview, they'll ask me situations on like how I would, handle this decision or what that's been. Also, you can just straight up ask, what are some trainings that you've been involved in? And from those trainings, like, I don't know, I know there's a lot of talk right now with, DEI, but you can ask, do you have any trainings in certain areas? What do you think about those? Not that it, affects the school climate, but those are ways to know to get those explicit answers, or you can get as an option like, hey, you don't have to answer it, but if you do, can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I know someone that if they were really, if their heart is for Black students, it's gonna come out. It's gonna come out, and you're just gonna know that. But I would give examples of things that you've seen in your school, that maybe you've questioned or you've seen or you didn't like the way that it was handled, and use those as constructive like ways to see if you can in an interview process. Also, if there's other teachers that are within your school, like recommendations, having those conversations, because now that you have this faculty, you can ask them and let them know about your vision and your heart and the things like that. Bringing up studies that, so again, I'm not sure how y'all's trainings are and what you do, but there's been studies on, again, I'm just going back to adultification bias. Yeah. There's studies that have been done, the qualitative and the quantitative, research has been done there for people to look at those videos to see what people have to say and then kind of pinpointing it from there. So I would just kind of really fit it to the culture of your school, and in that way, that's just kind of the best way I would think about doing that.
So what, something I've noticed in the school that I'm at, and honestly, and I don't think I've ever been in a school where this hasn't been the case. I noticed that when we start talking about gifted and talented, when we start talking about kids being in honor classes, we just do not see people of color at the same percentage. Because sometimes people will be like, well, there's not the same number, so you're not going to have the same quantity. And in some ways, I understand that, right? I understand the math.
Yeah.
But percentage, though, sometimes I think there is a bias in how the gifted and talented are put into place, because when you start knowing the game of education and how early certain things, when you talk about elementary school, that, once you kind of get on that track there, you're kind of in it. And so then if you are waiting till middle school or whatever, middle school is one of the hardest times for a student. So, and I have an incredible ITC instructional technology coach. And one day we were talking about gifted and talented, and she was like, somebody was like, well, this kid just, doesn't sit still. This kid is just, defiant or whatever. And she looked and she was like, well, you do know many of the things that you're saying about that kid is actually the traits of a gifted student.
Come on.
She was like a gifted student isn't going to want to sit down and do the work you asked them to do, because they're going to say, why would I sit down and do this? I already know the answer. Let me go do something else. A gifted student is probably going to be the one who is going to challenge you on what you're saying. And so I'm not saying that stereotype of Black students. What I am saying, though, is I do see many of our students pigeonholed in remedial courses or double block courses, which keeps them from getting into higher level classes, which hurts them later on in high school for some of the same behaviors, right, that technically are gifted. Do you feel like this has impacted Black females in a negative way? I feel like that the data already shows that, but just kind of in what ways do you feel like that's impacted them?
I think it's impacted them all around. I think even before you can talk about them getting into a gifted or any type of program, they're already stopped because of their so-called behavior. They don't even have a chance. Like, I remember, like, my sister, she was honored, like, yes, and she was one of the honor kids. And we joke about it today because she's like, but when I got there, I realized I was the only one. And she's like, it wasn't fair. And even some of the things that she's like, I understood why. But one of the things that she loved about it, and I think it goes back to who is in the place of whatever program is going on. I know a lot of this is just above us. A lot of this it's a system thing. It's above us. but the people that were in place to do the practical things, it was a teacher that was calling out things, that was kind of like that IT person seeing the things that are as they are. Like, no, that student is this. And that's why I think we have to continue to, even if it feels like we're just the one, to continue to raise your voice. I've also come to the point, like, just for me, I'm like, there are some people, like, I'm not saying that they can't change. I just think that they're not. They don't want to. They don't care. They don't even see this as an issue. They'll probably see this and just be like, what island are they on? Everybody's equal. We're past this.
Right.
I don't speak. I'm like, a couple of them may catch wind of it. Oh, well. But the ones that are kind of like, I'm a little scared, but I need a little help. Or the ones that are like, oh, I'm so fired up. They just said everything I've already said. Those are the ones I'm talking to.
Gotcha.
Those are the ones that I'm like, the ones that need a little bit growth in those areas that are just like, I don't really know what to do, but what can I do? Like, that's who the audience of people that I speak to. And so I'm like, speak up more. If you see something that's different, even if you come from a different culture, maybe it's not that, maybe you are, white, but you ain't from America and you just have a whole different mindset. And you're like, yeah, the education here, speak up into those different areas. Maybe you're from the West Coast and it's different than it is over here in the East Coast. Speak up on those things. And so I do think that, like, Black girls have just not had a fair chance, just because I just think I don't think people understand them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that their voices, I think so many people have spoken for them, including myself. They have not been the center stage of their own stories. It was not until, like, I had a humbling moment. It was until I sat with them. Do I think that some of them, no, seriously, do got some behavioral things? Yes. Do some of them get on my nerves at times? Yes. Do I want to give up sometimes? Yes. I'm tired sometimes. But the truth of it is I don't see them as like a problem or like something that I need to fix. Like, I actually view them as like my little sisters that give me headaches sometimes. I just need a little break from them. But I just have a totally different mindset. And when I heard their stories and I made spaces for their stories to be amplified, it changed everything. And I had to realize, and I'll say this, as somebody that's a strong believer, I got to meet the students that could care less about my religious beliefs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they taught me so much. I was able to be like, you know what? I can understand your perspective on things. We don't have the same walk through. And I think that was a humbling thing for me. And reading, like I said earlier, read. As educators, we do that, but continue to read books that are not just by men, that are not just by, white people, but are from all different backgrounds. And even if you don't agree, just read them just to understand other people's perspectives or where they come from. It really helps. It really helps you. And so I think that's where I've been able to, they're not even talking about what gifted and honor, because they are gifted in other ways that are not talked about, or that are just not in the school that would be something that's gifted for them. It's like, okay, there are, like you said, there are gifted students, or per se, that are in whatever the category is, that are many students, but then there's just other things that we've never called. But yeah, the gifted and honors, that's a whole nother conversation.
A
but
whole nother,
so
it's a whole nother beast.
It is. But yeah, I think there's so many other, before they can even touch that, I just feel like they just get in trouble for so many other, it's like just not even a fair, it's not even a fair thing. And it's not off topic, but you said something that made me think. We do a lot of things, and this goes to all adults, on how we perceive Black girls. We literally project, sometimes we project our own fears. And so this is for older Black women, because this is also a part of something that I have to check myself in. Even when I'm against other leaders that are older than me, that have been in the game a little bit longer than me, sometimes I feel like I'm bumping heads as well with them because I have a different mindset. There's that like respectability thing that comes with it, that I know a lot of older people, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all for the respect too and the honor. But this generation, it's a little different.
Right.
It's so different. And it's not that they're not respectful. They just don't take stuff. They want to know, they can tell what's genuine and what's not, because I'm getting so much respect where I'm like, wow. Like, there's kids that are like, we don't cuss around you, Miss Raj. I've never told them not to do that. I usually let them. I'm like, whatever, it doesn't bother me. if we go somewhere though, I'm like, y'all, because I don't, right, please, because I don't have to say anything to anybody because y'all my girls, but please just, so, but I think and I brought that up because there will be older women. There's concepts that are going around that'll say like, we think that they're grown, or these girls are so fast, or whatever. And that's kind of like saying, like, again, I'm just like, remember they're children. And when did the clothes that they wear define who they are? And again, I understand why there's dress codes in places. I'm not saying I don't agree with the dress codes. I'm somebody that's like, if I'm in a school and I'm like, this is what it is, like, I'm like, hey, y'all, we follow it. But do you have questions about it? I want them to think, why is this a problem? Because I want them to be able to know because when they get in the real world, I want them to be able to challenge these certain things.
Yeah.
And so, but for example, like, there's just so many, I mean, we can see that in the news and so many stories right now with young Black girls that are, a lot of the time the blame goes back onto the child. Like, it'll be an older man who is well past his years that knows better and will prey on these girls, and girls end up getting to be the problem. And I have an issue with that. And so I think our girls, these are the conversations they actually face. So yeah, when it comes to education, yeah, we're talking about math, we're talking about science, but these are the things that they face. They face when they leave the school building. They have to worry about the men or the women that are in their spaces, or how they're being treated, how the church may look upon them, or how the school or whatever program is looking, how their peers. It's so much more that's going on in their worlds that we're just trying to simplify it down to this one thing. Like, you need to have good grades. You need to do this. You need to do that. And education is essential for them. So I'm always like, Black girls, education is essential. Please get it. Please. It's such a power. It's such a powerful tool. But I'm also aware that when you get to know them and you get to hear their stories, like, why is she wearing what? Did you ever ask her why she's wearing? Did you ever ask her why she keeps missing school? Well, I'm sure, when you deal with, truancy and why kids are missing, a lot of the times, because of studies have shown that these girls are in home, like, a lot of them are having to take care of their siblings, or they're having to help mommy out. Like, I mean, these are just how it is. It's not everybody's story.
Right.
They're just, these are just facts and how it is. And I've gone through it. I have to say, my mother was a single mother. I had of course, my stepfather was there as well, but I've seen how, I remember going to a school and I was getting ready to go to college, and the way that the man talked to me, I think people just, I wish people could make more friends.
Yeah.
Not of their race and of their culture. Just have a meal with somebody that's different than you and learn their story. But I remember going to the school, and I didn't do so good on my tests. So I was one of those students. I was not a good test taker, y'all. And so they were going to take me to this school first, and they were like, you can do all your 101 story studies here, and then you can go to the university next year. So I guess it's kind of like a CVCC, Okay. And so of course, me, then I was like, I don't want to go to that. I want to go straight to university.
Right.
But I met when I first got there, I don't know if he was the coach or whatnot, but he came in, Black man. I don't know. I just was feeling his vibes. He was so awesome. He made it so fun. He was talking to me.
Yeah.
He just got it. He was just like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. Let me tell you about this. It was great. He was talking to me and my mother as regular people. So he traded me off to another one of his colleagues that happened to be a white man. And I felt like the way he talked to me, like I was this uneducated, had never experienced anything. He didn't ask me. I mean, I don't know. He just was like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. A lot of our Black students haven't fished. They haven't canoed. We get to show them all these things. I couldn't say nothing fast enough. My mom.
She said it.
My mom was like, we got a lake in the backyard with fishing. And what are you talking about? What are you talking? She just couldn't even. And while I was still enjoying the process because of the first guy, I was like, this is so cool. Maybe I will. My mom was like, absolutely not. Because this isn't who you are. he doesn't know anything about you. And I think had he been aware of how he was talking to me, I wonder if it was, does he just talk to the Black kids like that? Of course you leave thinking that. I don't know this man, but you leave thinking, why did he treat me different? Like, I know who I was. I know that I have already experienced all those things. Thank you for you guys, introducing this to some students that may have not, but we're so different. We're all so different. And so I just think it just takes a wide range of different people to know us. But also, I've met amazing people that are not Black, that have done their work, and they do the best they can to understand. And I love that about them. And I don't want them to change who they are and their culture. I just treat me like a human being that I am. So, yeah, same for those Black girls.
So then what are some resources that you have felt for individuals who are trying to understand, and also for Black women and our young Black girls, like resources to just help them come to know yourself, and then also for those of us who are not Black females, help us, I don't even want necessarily even use the word understand, because it almost makes it feel like something's right. Like, I got it. I'm trying to understand you because it's more of a help me see. So it's crazy. So this morning something happened. And Tawana is really good. Tawana is my wife, for the audience. She is very good at picking out, for lack of a better term, when somebody's spirit is off, right? Like, so if, like, I will sit there and I don't really care, right? I'm like the cutoff king. Like, if I don't like you or whatever, like, it just is what it is. We just won't talk. But I think I will also go blind to things because, like, I'm not your friend anyway, right? So because I'm not your friend anyway, like, you do stuff, it just doesn't matter to me because, again, I'm not going to coffee with you anyway. But something that I think she really will hit on is, because of that, stuff can be going on around me that isn't great. And it's not that I'm oblivious to it. I just am in my own zone. She picks up on stuff really good. And when we first got married, in a lot of ways, I used to think like something was wrong with her. It's like, well, why are you picking up on this stuff and I'm not picking up on this stuff? But now it's gotten to a point where I'm like, oh, it's not that anything's wrong. That's a strength of hers. And so instead of me acting like, okay, let her have that and I'm going to do my own thing, I am starting to listen a heck of a lot more when she's like, hey, such and such is moving like this, and I think it's because of this, this, and that. Okay, I start to look at it, 9 times out of 10, she's right, right? So what are ways for us to see the strengths, the value, the blessing of the Black female, the Black woman, the Black girl, and not just make it I just try to understand you, to know you, but I'm trying to, the things that you bring to the table, I want to, I want to not use it, but I want to bring that on my team as a leader. So hopefully I said that well.
I think you did. And I would say, well, what came up in my mind, I hope this is what you were asking, but I think when it comes to even just like your school environment or just in general, whatever space you find yourself in, you said it yourself. People have to be able to tell their stories.
Yeah.
And so, for example, if you were to open up, so I think this would be amazing, some type of group where Black girls could just be, where they would be able, like the questions that you're asking, like you could be able as a leader to go to them and ask them this.
Yeah.
You could literally just be like, hey, so this happened last week. How do y'all feel about it? Like, let them tell you, let them create that culture. Like, of course, I'm going to have my sayings from the girls that I've worked with, but like you being able to like say, hey, this is your space. Do what you will with it. Obviously, they know within school, but like, do what you will with that.
Yeah.
Have a trusted, counselor or teacher with them because things are going to be brought up.
Yes.
I always recommend a really good counselor that they trust and that they're okay. Even if you ask them, maybe 2 or 3 girls like that you're like, it would be real good. They're really outspoken. These girls are outspoken.
Yeah.
And so having them and asking them, who's a leader in the school that you wouldn't mind being there with you all, just to like, just be there. So y'all have somebody in the room with y'all. And allowing them to tell their stories, let them amplify their own voices. You asked about resources. I got that concept from, and I've seen it done, but there is, and I'm wearing their shirt now. It says Black Girls Supporting Black Girls. So it's Justice for Black Girls. I love them so much. They are a national organization that are run by teenage girls. I believe they're ages 13 to 24. I could be wrong on the ages. They have their own Instagram. A lot of their stuff is put out on Instagram. They are the tellers of their own stories. They host conferences. They're doing their own podcast like this, and they're leading the way. And so we get to sit at the table and be their audience, and we get to hear their stories. And if we have questions, we get to go to them. And I have found that whenever I'm in certain spaces now, like the ways that I do it, is if I'm invited somewhere, the way I look at it practically. So I was speaking at a church here, probably a couple years ago. And this is not like, how did you bring this up in supporting Black girls? I went in the room, and obviously it was a predominantly white church, and the leaders had asked my pastor to come and to speak on reconciliation and all of that. And my pastor may have two different, views on reconciliation, but he's like, I love when you come in and you speak. And so I came in and I saw there was like maybe 2 or 3 Black women that I could identify, like they looked like they were Black women. And the ways that I do it is I make space for them. So when I'm in these spaces, I'm like, hey, how do you feel? Of course, I'm putting them on the spot. I can tell when they're like, oh, I don't want to speak. Like, don't even. But like, I do it in a way where I'm like, I want to give you space.
Yeah.
To speak right now. Like, it's not even like, what do you have to say from what your peers is? Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever, and to hear the things that come out of their mouth because they finally feel like they can say it because they have someone in there that's trusted. It just makes all of the difference. Because I will sit in some spaces that say that they're safe, and I'll just be like, oh, no, I'm not speaking but if I have somebody there that I'm like, oh, I know they're for me or they'll have my back, I'll just blah, 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 blah. But I always speak up for Black girls. But if it's for me, times I'm like, because my inner child is also sometimes scared. She's still there. And that's why I was telling you, when I'm in spaces with Black women, I'm like, I see their inner child. All the time. It's kind of like with Tawana, like you see it for what it is. Sometimes I'm like, what in the world? But then sometimes I'm like, ooh, what happened to that inner child? What happened to her? Did anything happen to her? Was she able to have a space? Did she have a voice? Did she feel like she was too much? Did she feel like she wasn't enough? What category was she put into? So yeah, I think a practical way would just be simply to get the students that you have that may be able to, even if you're like, I don't know if I'm not sure if they're able, like they probably may have never done it before, but letting them do it. I think me and Tawana, when we were working together, we created a group and we got to see the young ladies speak, and we were just there. We provided prompts, but like them girls, you give them a space, they gonna talk. They are gonna talk. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, look, I know we're coming up on probably like 45 minutes or so of the pod, and so I got a couple of quick questions for you. And so, kind of lightning round. What is a book that has influenced you the most in your, well, you may do 2 things, in your passion for Black girls, but just also has influenced you just the most, period, as a person?
I also, because I got my books behind me, but I'm going to pull one up that you guys can see that I absolutely love. So, Sugar in the Raw. This is by Rebecca Carroll. This book was recommended to me by my friend Tanya White. She used to be a counselor at one of the high schools here in the area.
Okay.
And she told me to read these stories. So as I keep telling you guys to center the voices of, young Black girls, this is stories from them. This is literally how they feel that they're viewed in the world. And they have some amazing stories. And it's so funny because this book is old, but every time I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like it's current of today. So it just impacted me a lot because now when I go into spaces, I kind of recreate it. And I'm like, all right, let me hear your stories. Or I'll give them a prompt. Or I'll just say, like, if you could tell your teacher one thing, anything, what would you tell them? And they'll just write it out. And so I think that has impacted me. I've used it for myself. I've used it on older people. And so I would say Sugar in the Raw, Voices of Young Black Girls in America has had a really big impact on me.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have to get that. I think you brought that book up when you spoke at the conference that we were in. So what if you could have 5 dinner guests, dead or alive? These would be your 5 at your table. Who would you choose?
Oh my goodness. That is funny. Okay, the first one would definitely be my best friend Tanya White. Y'all, she's amazing. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have to get her on the podcast too.
You do. You do. Another person would be Britt George. Oh my goodness, I love her.
Yep.
I aspire, like she probably is gonna be like, stop it, Olivia. I hate that you're doing this. But when I say that woman has changed my life, I just appreciate how she's made space for me, how she speaks out. I just love her. So she would definitely be at my table.
Okay.
Who else? Another one of the authors, Khristi, would be at the table just because I love how she's, she talks about things. I would definitely have, obviously I got 2 daughters, but I would have my oldest at the table.
Okay.
Just because I think it's important for her to be around just people and hearing different things. And then right off the cuff, because I'm just like thinking of people, my mom, because I think she just brings a whole different perspective, because she's always like, I'm not as outspoken as you, but I'm like, I get everything from you. What are you talking about? Yeah. And so I would say her. So those are my 5.
What's beautiful about that is most people will choose, like celebrities or famous individuals. Like literally everybody on your list are like, these are people who I vibe with on a regular basis. And I would want to go to dinner with you, which says something about your circle that I wasn't going to pick a whole bunch. Like, I like being with you all.
I love
so that's pretty cool. The last question is, we already got one person that I got to get on the pod, but there was anybody that you would love to see on the podcast. Who would you like to see? But it has to be somebody that you can help us get.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I'm going to say, I'm going to go ahead and say Britt George.
Okay.
She would drop some nuggets for y'all.
Okay. I'm down.
She's amazing. I don't know her time, but I will ask her and help you all out. But I think that you all would be blessed from a therapeutic standpoint.
Okay.
And how she sees just all people and how she loves that way. So yeah.
Okay. Cool beans.
Yeah.
Well, look, Mrs. Raj, we appreciate you being on the podcast today. I think this was awesome. I definitely see us doing this again because, like you said, we had at least 2 or 3 times during this podcast where it was said, hey, that's a topic for another day.
A whole other day.
That's a whole nother day. So we definitely got to do this again. Yeah. I know I'm going to try to get my wife on one, so I think that's going to be interesting because we going to get into some things of what this school leadership thing and being married looks like.
Yes. So, I love her so much.
I'm looking forward to that. So to all the people who are watching, remember, this is Hot Conversations with School Leaders. Remember, we're going to be honest, open, and transparent. What I will tell you, in my own journey, it has become become very freeing to be honest, open, and transparent. So I encourage you to do that in your own life, because I think, as Mrs. Raj was saying, that's going to be very impactful and helpful to your students. As you are starting to become comfortable with who you are starting not to try to put everything behind masks, what you start to find is that you're more open to what other people are dealing with, to their thoughts, to what is going on with them. And honestly, you just become a better leader in the process. So we love you. Keep leading, and we will talk to you later.